Story 1. I've always been a movie enthusiast. There's something magical about sitting in a dark theater, surrounded by strangers who are all sharing the same experience. For 2 hours, we laugh, cry, and gasp together, then go our separate ways, never to meet again. At least, that's how it usually goes. But not last Saturday. For context, I work night shifts at a warehouse, which means my schedule is basically flipped. I sleep during the day and I'm awake at night. This makes it hard to do normal things with friends, so I've gotten used to doing stuff alone, including going to movies during afternoon showtimes when theaters are less crowded. That particular Saturday, I had a rare day off and decided to treat myself to the new comedy blockbuster everyone had been talking about. I'd been looking forward to it for months. The director was known for clever, witty humor rather than just crude jokes, and the early reviews were excellent. I bought my ticket for the 2:30 p.m. showing, got some popcorn and a soda, and found my seat right in the middle of the theater, my favorite spot. The theater was about half full, which was nice. Not too empty, not too crowded. I settled in as the lights dimmed and the previews began. There were the usual trailers for upcoming superhero movies and romantic comedies. But then a trailer for an indie comedy came on. It had this perfectly timed visual gag where a character dramatically opens a door expecting something terrible, and instead finds something ridiculously mundane. The timing was perfect, and I let out a small chuckle. Suddenly, I heard an aggressive shhhhh from behind me. I turned slightly, confused. It was just a short laugh during a trailer for a comedy, no less. I figured maybe the person thought I was being too loud, so I made a mental note to keep it down during the actual movie. No big deal. The trailers continued. A few minutes later, another comedy trailer played. This one had a scene where a character slips on something and does an over-the-top pratfall. Several people in the theater laughed, including me. That's when I heard the voice. "Karen, loudly, are you kidding me? Again?" I turned around to see a woman, maybe in her 40s, glaring directly at me. There were only 2 other people in her row, and they were scooting away from her, looking uncomfortable. Me, whispering, "Sorry, is there a problem?" Karen, not whispering at all, "Yes, there's a problem. Your laughing is triggering my trauma." People around us started to look our way. I was completely baffled. Me, still whispering, "It's a comedy trailer. People are supposed to laugh." Karen, standing up, "Now do you think trauma is funny? I specifically chose this quiet showing to avoid disrespectful people like you." At this point, the trailer had ended and another was beginning. But all eyes in the theater were on this woman who was now fully standing and pointing at me. Me, "I'm sorry if I disturbed you, but I was just reacting to the movie. I'll try to keep it down." Karen, "No, you won't just keep it down. You'll be completely silent or I'm getting management." A guy a few seats away from me spoke up. "Guy nearby, it's a comedy. People are going to laugh. That's kind of the point." Karen, "Did I ask for your opinion? This is between me and this disrespectful person." She was still pointing at me. By now, the previews had stopped, and the "please silence your phones" announcement was playing, which was ironic considering she was making far more noise than any phone could. Another person, from across the theater, "Please sit down. The movie's starting." Karen, even louder, "I paid for this experience just like everyone else, and I deserve to enjoy it without being triggered." At this point, a theater employee came in with a flashlight. He looked young, probably a college student working part-time. Employee, quietly, "Ma'am, we've received complaints about a disturbance. Could you please lower your voice?" Karen, turning to him dramatically, "I'm the one being disturbed." This person, pointing at me again, keeps laughing loudly, even though I've asked them to stop. Employee, looking confused, "Ma'am, this is a comedy film. People will laugh." Karen, "Not during the trailers. That's disrespectful. And I have trauma that's triggered by sudden loud noises." The employee looked at me, then back at her, clearly trying to figure out what to do. Employee, "If you're sensitive to noise, perhaps we can move you to a different seat." We have some available in the back corner that might be quieter. Karen, why should I move? I picked this seat specifically. They should move. Employee, patiently, ma'am, they're not doing anything against theater policy. Laughing during a comedy trailer is completely normal. Karen, well, your policy is discriminatory against people with trauma. I want to speak to your manager right now. The employee sighed and spoke into his walkie-talkie. A few moments later, an older woman in a theater uniform with a manager badge arrived. Manager, what seems to be the problem? Karen immediately launched into her version of events, claiming I had been loudly cackling her exact words throughout the previews, and when she politely asked me to stop, I had apparently been rude and dismissive. Complete fiction. When she finished, the manager turned to me. Manager, sir, what's your side of this? Me, I laughed briefly at 2 comedy trailers, not loudly. She shushed me the first time, and I didn't think much of it. The second time, she started yelling about trauma and being triggered by laughter. I offered to try to keep it down during the movie, but honestly, if it's a comedy, there will probably be laughter from the audience. The manager looked around at the other moviegoers nearby, who were nodding in agreement with my version. Manager, to Karen, ma'am, I understand you may have sensitivities, but we can't prohibit normal audience reactions like laughter in a comedy film. I'd be happy to move you to our sensory-friendly showing on Tuesday evening, which has lower volume and where audience members are asked to minimize reactions, or we can move you to a more isolated seat for this showing. Karen, that is unacceptable. I don't want to attend a special showing like I'm some kind of problem. I want this showing, but with respectful people. Manager, then I can offer to move you to a different seat away from others. Karen, crossing her arms, fine, but I want it noted in your system that I've been harassed. The manager nodded and led Karen to a seat in the far corner of the theater. The movie's opening credits had already started, and people were audibly sighing with relief that the drama seemed to be over. It wasn't. About 10 minutes into the film, during the first big laugh line, many people in the theater, including me, laughed. Suddenly, from the corner of the theater, came Karen's voice again. Karen, this is ridiculous. I can still hear them. The manager, who must have been waiting just outside, immediately came back in. She approached Karen and had a whispered conversation that grew increasingly less whispered on Karen's part. Karen, loud enough for everyone to hear a refund isn't enough. I want them removed. My trauma is more important than their entertainment. The manager firmly took Karen by the elbow and led her toward the exit. As they reached the door, the manager turned back to the theater. Manager, to all of us, I apologize for the interruption. Everyone, please enjoy the film. We'll restart it from the beginning to make up for the disturbance. The movie restarted, and we all settled in again. About 30 minutes later, the manager quietly came back in and approached me. Manager, whispering, sir, I wanted to apologize for the disturbance. That customer has been refunded and asked not to return to our theater. Your popcorn and drink have been comped, and we've added 2 free tickets to your rewards account. I thanked her, genuinely surprised by the excellent customer service. As she turned to leave, she added one more thing. Manager, with a small smile for what it's worth. We checked her visit history. She's pulled similar stunts during 3 other comedies this month. Always on a different day, always with a different trigger. Today was just the first time someone stood up to her. The rest of the movie was fantastic. Every time there was a big laugh line, it felt like the whole theater was laughing just a little louder than they might have otherwise. There's something wonderfully defiant about shared joy in the face of attempted suppression. I've been back to that theater several times since, and I've never seen Karen again. But I did notice they've added a new sign by the ticket counter. Laughter, tears, gasps, and applause are all part of the shared cinema experience. If you require a quieter environment, please inquire about our sensory-friendly showings. Sometimes the credits roll on entitled behavior sooner than expected. Story 2. I've been attending Friday prayers at the same mosque for nearly 5 years now. It's a beautiful community center that serves not just as a place of worship, but also hosts charity events, educational programs, and social gatherings for Muslims in our area. Like all mosques, there's a shoe rack area near the entrance where everyone removes their footwear before entering the prayer hall to keep the space clean and pure. Last month, my brother got married in a beautiful ceremony. As a gift, he gave all the groomsmen, including me, identical pairs of handmade leather shoes from this artisanal shop he discovered. They weren't just any shoes, they were butter soft, hand-stitched, and dyed this rich caramel color that somehow looked both classic and modern. They weren't cheap either, running about $200 a pair, but they were the most comfortable dress shoes I'd ever worn. I'd only worn them twice before, once at the wedding, and once to a dinner party when I decided to wear them to Friday prayers. They were special to me, not just because of their quality, but because they reminded me of my brother's happy day. I arrived at the mosque about 15 minutes before prayers began, carefully placed my shoes on the rack with the toes pointing outward as is customary, and went inside to find a spot. The sermon that day was particularly moving, focusing on honesty and integrity in daily life. The Imam spoke about how trustworthiness is a cornerstone of our faith, and how small acts of dishonesty can erode the foundation of a community. I left the prayer hall feeling spiritually recharged and at peace. That feeling didn't last long. When I got to the shoe rack area, which was now crowded with people retrieving their footwear, I couldn't spot my caramel leather shoes where I'd left them. I scanned the entire rack, thinking maybe someone had moved them when fitting their own shoes in, but they weren't anywhere to be found. Instead, where I had placed my shoes, there was a pair of worn-out sneakers that looked like they'd seen better days about 5 years ago. They were roughly the same color as my leather shoes, if you squinted, and had a very generous definition of caramel, but that was where the similarity ended. I stood there, puzzled, wondering if I had somehow forgotten where I placed my shoes, or if someone had accidentally taken them thinking they were their own. As I was looking around in confusion, I noticed a woman near the exit, already wearing my distinctive leather shoes and heading for the door. She wasn't a regular at our mosque. I would have remembered seeing her before. I quickly walked over to her, trying to stay calm and assume the best that this was just an innocent mistake. Excuse me, I think you might have accidentally taken my shoes." She looked down at her feet, then up at me with a perfectly composed expression of innocence. "Woman, these? No, these are mine. I wear them all the time." I pointed to the shoes she was wearing. "Those are handmade leather shoes that my brother gave me as a gift for being in his wedding. I just wore them today and placed them on the rack over there." She looked annoyed now, as if I was inconveniencing her with my accusation. "Woman, well, they look like mine. It must be a coincidence. Lots of people have similar shoes." I tried to stay patient, remembering that I was still in a holy place and had just listened to a sermon about good character. "These are pretty unique shoes. They're handmade from a specific artisan shop. If you look inside, you'll see my brother's initials that he had stamped into each pair for the groomsmen." She shifted uncomfortably but held her ground. "Woman, I don't need to check. I know my own shoes. Maybe yours look similar, but someone else took them." By now, a small group of people had paused to observe our conversation. I noticed one of the mosque's security volunteers watching us with interest. "Look, there's a pair of old sneakers on the rack where I left my shoes. Are those yours, by any chance?" Her face flushed slightly. "Woman, absolutely not. My shoes are these ones I'm wearing. I would never wear old sneakers like that to a mosque. This is getting ridiculous. I'm leaving now." She turned to go, but the security volunteer stepped forward. "Security volunteer, is there a problem here?" Before I could answer, the woman jumped in. "Woman, this man is accusing me of taking his shoes, which is absurd. These are clearly my shoes that I came in wearing." I explained the situation calmly, describing the shoes and mentioning the initials inside. The security volunteer looked thoughtful. "Security volunteer, we can easily clear this up. We have security cameras covering the entrance area for safety purposes. We can check the footage and see what shoes everyone came in wearing. Would that be acceptable? I nodded immediately. Yes, that would be perfect. The woman's confident demeanor faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. Woman, this is completely unnecessary and a waste of time, but fine. Then you'll see these are my shoes and you can apologize for accusing me. The security volunteer led us to a small office where another staff member was monitoring several screens showing different areas of the mosque. After a brief explanation, they pulled up the footage from about an hour earlier, around the time the afternoon prayers began. We watched in silence as people entered, removed their shoes, and proceeded inside. Then the woman appeared on screen, clearly wearing a pair of worn sneakers, the exact ones now sitting on the rack. The footage showed her removing them, placing them on the rack, and going inside. The security volunteer fast-forwarded to after the prayers. The footage clearly showed the woman scanning the shoe rack, picking up several shoes as if checking them, then spotting my leather shoes. She looked around furtively, picked them up, and quickly put them on before heading toward the exit. The room was quiet for a moment as the footage stopped. The woman's face had gone from confident to mortified. Security volunteer, I think that clarifies the situation. Woman, there must be some mistake. Maybe I got confused. Security volunteer, the video shows you came in wearing different shoes entirely. Those sneakers on the rack are clearly yours, and you intentionally took this man's shoes. I'd like my shoes back, please. With everyone's eyes on her, she had no choice. She slipped off my leather shoes and handed them to me, her face now bright red. Woman, it was a simple mix-up. I thought they were mine. Security volunteer, the footage shows you deliberately checking multiple shoes and taking these specific ones. That's not a mix-up. That's attempted theft in a house of worship, right after a sermon about honesty. She stared at the floor, not responding. The security volunteer turned to me. Security volunteer, would you like to involve the police in this matter? I thought about it for a moment. While I was upset about the attempted theft, especially of something so meaningful to me, I didn't want to escalate the situation to legal charges. No, I have my shoes back now. That's all I wanted. The security volunteer nodded, then turned to the woman with a stern expression. Security volunteer, you need to put on your own shoes and leave now. The mosque administration will be informed of this incident, and you will not be welcome back in this mosque. We take theft very seriously, especially in a sacred space where people should feel their belongings are safe. Woman, you can't ban me. This is a public place of worship. Security volunteer, this is a private property operated by our Islamic Center. We have the right to deny access to individuals who violate our code of conduct, which certainly includes theft. If you wish to appeal this decision, you can write to the mosque committee, but I strongly suggest you reflect on your actions today first. The woman grabbed her worn sneakers from the rack, put them on, and stormed out of the mosque without another word. Several people who had overheard parts of the conversation or seen the confrontation looked on with disapproving expressions. As she left, an older man who had been watching shook his head sadly. Older man, right after a sermon about honesty, too. Some people just don't listen. I checked my recovered shoes carefully. Thankfully, she hadn't damaged them in the short time she had them on. The incident left me shaken, but also grateful for the security measures the mosque had in place and the attentive staff who helped resolve the situation. Since then, the mosque has installed a new, better organized shoe rack system with numbered slots and has reminded the community to be vigilant. As for my special leather shoes, I still wear them to the mosque occasionally, but now I place them in a less conspicuous spot just to be safe. The woman never returned to our mosque, at least not during any prayer times I've attended. I sometimes wonder if she reflected on what she did and felt remorse, or if she simply moved on to another mosque where no one knew her face yet. Either way, I hope she remembered the sermon that day about honesty and integrity. Sometimes the lessons we need most are the ones we hear right before making our worst decisions. Story 3. I've always found libraries to be my perfect sanctuary. As a freelance writer working on my first novel, coffee shops were too noisy, my apartment too distracting with roommates coming and going, and co-working spaces too expensive. The public library became my office 3 years ago, and I've been a regular ever since. My routine was simple. I'd arrive when they opened at 9 a.m., claim my favorite spot in the back corner, near the nonfiction section, put on my noise-canceling headphones, and work until around 2 p.m. The library staff knew me by sight, if not by name, and I made sure to follow all the unspoken rules of shared spaces. No loud typing, no food, clean up after myself, and most importantly mind my own business. That Wednesday started like any other. I had a deadline for a freelance article about urban gardening, so I was particularly focused on my work. With my headphones playing instrumental music at a low volume, I was completely in the zone, typing at a steady pace, but making sure not to hammer the keys too loudly. I was about 2 hours into my work when I felt a tap on my shoulder that startled me so badly I nearly knocked over my water bottle. I pulled off my headphones and turned to see a woman in her late 30s staring at me with obvious irritation. She was wearing flowing clothes in various shades of purple, several crystal necklaces, and had her hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Woman, excuse me, but you need to stop what you're doing immediately." I looked around, confused about what rule I might have broken. "Me? I'm sorry?" "Woman, you're typing. And your energy. You're disturbing the vibration of the room." I stared at her, genuinely unsure if I'd heard her correctly. "Me? My typing? I've been trying to be quiet." "Woman, it's not just the sound. It's the frequency you're emitting. This area of the library has a specific resonance, and you're completely disrupting it with your aggressive typing patterns." I noticed a few people at nearby tables glancing our way. "Me, I don't understand. I'm just working quietly with my headphones on." She sighed dramatically, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "Woman, look, I'm an energy specialist. I can sense these things. The vibrations in this room need to remain balanced, and your chaotic frequency is throwing everything off. I come here every week to do my spiritual readings, and I can't concentrate with you disturbing the energy field." I looked around again, hoping to see a librarian, but none were in sight. "Me, I'm sorry, but I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just typing on my laptop." Her eyes narrowed. "Woman, I need you to pack up and move to a different section. This corner has the best alignment with the Earth's magnetic field, and it's essential for my work." "Me, I've been sitting in this spot almost every day for 3 years. I'm not disturbing anyone." "Woman, you're disturbing me. And that's enough reason for you to leave." She reached forward and closed my laptop lid, nearly catching my fingers in the process. "Me, hey, don't touch my computer." "Woman, lower your voice. This is a library." The irony of her statement was apparently lost on her as her own voice had risen considerably. By now, several people were openly watching our interaction. "Me, please don't touch my belongings. I'm not going to move." "Woman, you have no idea who you're dealing with. I'm friends with several board members of this library system." As she continued her tirade, I noticed an older man at a nearby table shaking his head. He caught my eye and rolled his eyes in solidarity, which made me feel slightly better. Just as I was considering simply packing up to avoid further confrontation, deadline be damned, one of the librarians approached. I recognized her as the woman who had been working at the reference desk for as long as I'd been coming to the library. "Librarian, is there a problem here?" Before I could speak, the woman turned to the librarian. "Woman, yes, there's a problem. This person is completely disrupting the energetic balance of this space with aggressive typing and negative frequencies. I've asked them politely to move, but they're refusing." The librarian glanced at me, then back to the woman. "Librarian, misredacted. We've discussed this before. Patrons are allowed to use their laptops in the library as long as they're not making excessive noise. Woman, this isn't about noise, it's about energy patterns. You people never understand the importance of maintaining proper vibrational harmony in public spaces. The librarian's professional demeanor remained intact, but I could see a flash of exasperation in her eyes. Librarian, I've been standing at the reference desk for the past hour, and I haven't heard any disruptive typing. This patron is using headphones and working quietly. Woman, just because you can't sense the disruption doesn't mean it isn't happening. By now, her voice was definitely louder than any typing I had been doing. The librarian seemed to make a decision. Librarian, Miss Redacted, I need to ask you to lower your voice or step outside. Woman, are you serious? I'm trying to explain a serious problem, and you're taking their side? Librarian, I'm not taking sides. I'm enforcing our library policies. Everyone is welcome to use this space as long as they follow our rules. Woman, this is outrageous. I've been coming to this library for months. The librarian nodded patiently. Librarian, yes, and this will be the third time this month I've had to speak with you about approaching other patrons with complaints about energy disturbances. I tried not to show my surprise. This was a regular occurrence. Woman, because no one is addressing the problem. The man over there has a watch that's emitting dangerous frequencies, and that woman by the window is reading a book with toxic thought patterns. She pointed to two different patrons, who both looked up in alarm at being dragged into the conversation. The librarian sighed. Librarian, Miss Redacted, I need to ask you to leave for today. You're welcome to return tomorrow if you can respect our policies about not harassing other patrons. Woman, harassing. I'm trying to help them. Their chakras are completely misaligned. Librarian, please lower your voice and gather your belongings, or I'll need to call security. The woman stared at the librarian in disbelief, then at me, as if expecting me to jump in and support her claims. When I remained silent, she huffed loudly. Woman, this library has become a cesspool of negative energy. I'm going to contact the board about this. She began shoving her items, several books on crystal healing, a notebook, and what appeared to be a pendulum into a large fabric bag. Woman, you'll be hearing from my spiritual advisor about this. The universal energy doesn't forget these transgressions. As she stormed off, the librarian turned to me. Librarian, I apologize for the disruption. Are you okay? Me, I'm fine, thanks. Has she really done this before? The librarian nodded wearily. Librarian, this is her third energy incident this month. Last week she told an elderly gentleman that his breathing pattern was disrupting the cosmic flow of the reading room. And before that, she tried to place crystals around a student's study materials to rebalance their academic aura. Me, wow, I had no idea. Librarian, we try to accommodate all our patrons, but when someone starts interfering with others' ability to use the library, we have to draw the line. After the librarian returned to her desk, the older man who had rolled his eyes earlier leaned over. Ma'am, she told me last week that my wristwatch was emitting dangerous electromagnetic frequencies that were affecting her pineal gland. We both stifled laughter to maintain library decorum. I returned to my work, grateful for the librarian's intervention. The next day, I brought a small thank you card and a coffee gift card for her, which she accepted with a smile and a knowing look. The energy specialist didn't return during my regular hours for at least 2 weeks. When she finally did reappear, she chose a spot on the opposite side of the library and made a show of placing small crystals in a circle around her table. I noticed the librarian keeping a watchful eye on her throughout the day. As for me, I started being even more conscious of my typing energy, which apparently must have improved because I wasn't accused of disrupting any vibrational fields again. Though sometimes, when I'm struggling with writer's block, I wonder if maybe my chakras really are misaligned after all. Story 4. I've always been a careful planner, especially when it comes to travel. After spending the past year working remotely as a data analyst, I finally had to make the trip to headquarters for the annual company meeting. I booked my train ticket 3 weeks in advance to make sure I got a seat in the quiet car. As someone who gets migraines from too much noise, the quiet car is pretty much the only way I can travel without ending up sick. The day of my trip arrived, and I got to the station early. I had my noise-canceling headphones, my tablet loaded with e-books, and a small travel pillow. Everything I needed for the 4-hour journey. The train was moderately full when I boarded, but I found my reserved seat easily enough a window seat with no one next to me yet. As other passengers filed in, I settled in with my e-book. I didn't even have my headphones on, just enjoying the relative quiet of the designated quiet car. About 20 minutes into the journey, most seats were filled, and we were well on our way. I was deeply engrossed in my book when someone dropped heavily into the seat across the aisle from me. From the corner of my eye, I could see it was a middle-aged woman with stiff, over-processed blonde hair and a lot of jangling bracelets. She had 2 large shopping bags that she struggled to fit under the seat in front of her. After finally arranging her bags, she pulled out her phone and began to scroll loudly, you know the type, who somehow manages to make even the act of using a touchscreen sound aggressive. I ignored her and continued reading my e-book. Not 5 minutes later, I heard an exaggerated sigh from across the aisle. I glanced over briefly to see the woman staring at me with obvious irritation. Thinking nothing of it, I returned to my book. "Woman, excuse me, excuse me." Her voice cut through the quiet car like a foghorn. Several passengers looked up with annoyed expressions. "Me, yes." "Woman, your music is way too loud. This is the quiet car." I blinked in confusion. My phone wasn't playing any music. My headphones weren't even connected to anything. They were sitting unused in my lap. "Me, I'm sorry, but I'm not playing any music." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Woman, don't lie to me. I can hear your trashy music from here. It's very disruptive." I held up my phone to show her. "Me, look, my phone isn't even on. I'm just reading a book." The woman's face flushed red. "Woman, I know what I'm hearing. It's coming from your direction, and it's completely inappropriate for the quiet car." By now, several nearby passengers were watching our interaction with concerned or annoyed expressions. "Me, I assure you, I'm not playing any music. Perhaps you're hearing something else." The woman stood up suddenly, looming over me. "Woman, are you calling me a liar? I paid good money for this ticket, and I shouldn't have to put up with this noise pollution. Where is the conductor?" I tried to keep my voice calm and quiet. "Me, I'm just saying I don't have any music playing. You can see for yourself." I held up my phone again, showing the e-reader app open and no audio playing. "Woman, that's not the device you're using for the music. You probably have another phone or something hidden. This is absolutely ridiculous." An elderly man seated behind us leaned forward. "Elderly man, ma'am, there isn't any music playing. You're the only one making noise in the quiet car right now." This only seemed to infuriate her more. "Woman, oh, so you're all in on this together? Is this some kind of prank? I know what I'm hearing." She began looking around wildly, as if searching for hidden speakers. Then she focused back on me. "Woman, it's probably those headphones. You have them playing out loud instead of into your ears." "Me, they're not even connected to anything. Look." I picked up my headphones and showed her that they weren't plugged into anything, nor were they turned on for Bluetooth. "Woman, I want to speak to someone in charge immediately. This is harassment." A business traveler across from us sighed loudly. "Business traveler, the only harassment happening is you yelling in the quiet car. Some of us are trying to work." The woman's voice rose even higher. "Woman, all of you are being incredibly rude. I have sensitive hearing, and someone is deliberately playing music to disturb me." Just then, the train conductor appeared, likely drawn by the commotion. "Conductor, is there a problem here? Please remember this is the designated quiet car." Before I could speak, the woman jumped in. "Woman. Yes, there's a problem. This person is playing loud music and disrupting everyone. And now they're all ganging up on me when I called it out." The conductor turned to me with a questioning look. Me. I'm not playing any music. My phone is only being used for reading, and my headphones aren't even connected to anything. I demonstrated this again, showing both my phone and the disconnected headphones. The conductor nodded and addressed the woman. "Conductor. Ma'am, I don't hear any music coming from this passenger. Is it possible you're hearing something else?" Woman. "Are you seriously taking their side? I know what I'm hearing. It's a constant beat, like some kind of electronic dance music. It's coming from right here." The conductor maintained his professional demeanor. "Conductor. We take noise complaints in the quiet car very seriously. We have audio monitoring equipment throughout the train for security purposes. Let me check the audio levels in this section." The conductor pulled out a small tablet device from his uniform pocket and tapped on it a few times. After a moment, he looked up. "Conductor, according to our system, the only elevated audio in this section of the train began approximately 5 minutes ago, which coincides with when you raised your voice, ma'am. There is no music or unauthorized audio detected." The woman's mouth opened and closed several times before she found her words. "Woman. That's impossible. Your equipment must be faulty. I know what I'm hearing." The conductor's expression hardened slightly. "Conductor. Our equipment was calibrated this morning, as it is before every journey. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice or move to a different car where conversation is permitted." Woman. "I will not move. I specifically booked the quiet car because I have sensitive hearing. It's that person who should be moved." She jabbed a finger in my direction. Conductor. "Ma'am, all evidence suggests you're the only one creating a disturbance. I must insist that you either stop disrupting the quiet car or relocate to another section of the train." Woman. "This is outrageous. I want to speak to your supervisor. I want your employee number. This is discrimination." The conductor sighed. Conductor. "Ma'am, we'll be stopping at the next station in about 10 minutes. At that point, you'll need to either move to a different car or exit the train. If you continue to disturb the other passengers, I'll be forced to involve the transit police." Woman. "Transit police? For what? For standing up for my rights? This is a conspiracy." The woman began gathering her shopping bags. Woman. "Fine, I'll move, but I'm filing a formal complaint. This is a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. My sensitive hearing is a protected condition." As she struggled with her bags, she continued her rant. Woman. "You're all part of this. It's a coordinated attack. First the sonic weapons, and now this." The conductor helped her with her bags and escorted her toward the door between cars. Her voice faded as they moved away, but we could still hear snippets about government surveillance and audio mind control. When the train stopped at the next station, I saw the woman being escorted off the train entirely by the conductor and a station security officer. She was still gesturing wildly and pointing back toward our car. After the train resumed its journey, a peaceful quiet settled over the car. The elderly man behind me leaned forward again. Elderly man. Some people just can't stand it when the world doesn't revolve around them. The business traveler nodded in agreement. Business traveler. I've been commuting on this line for 15 years. That's the first time I've seen someone kicked off for imaginary noise pollution. I put on my headphones, still not connected to anything, and returned to my book, grateful for the restored tranquility of the quiet car. Sometimes silence really is golden, especially when it follows the removal of entitled chaos.